Okay, my name is Duncan Foley, and this is FlexSim uh, booklet 1 advanced, and we're going to be using FlexSim 2020. Quick look at what we're going to do. It's going to be quite a basic model in some respects. We're going to have a source going to a queue, which splits off to 4 processors, then comes back to the second queue, then goes to a final processor, a sort of testing station. A percentage of those are going to go to the sink, and a small percentage is going to go back around the conveyor and send it right back to the Q1. Let's move down, so it's just a little bit of setups and stuff. We're going to use a table to create the parts from the source. So item types 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Item type 1, there's going to be 20%. 2, there's going to be 30. 3, there's going to be 40%, and 4, there's going to be 10%. That's another way of creating a list of parts. There we go. Moving down, and then what we're going to do is introduce the area which allows us to design and model and change flow items. So you can just about see around the back there's a box there, and we're going to give it a label, and we're going to access that label later on. So we're going to give it a label and call it Rework. It's already going to have a label called type 1, 2, 3, 4. But what we're going to do is we're going to get that value for Rework, and it's going to be defaulted to 0, and as it comes through, if it becomes one of the 20% that goes back around the conveyor, we're going to change that rework value from 0 to 1, and then when it gets to the queue, we want that rework not to go to the back of the queue, we want it to jump to the front of the queue. We also want to, when that rework object gets to the processor, we'd like the processor to take slightly longer. Imagine you have to undo something to fix it and then rebuild it. So it's not unreasonable to have examples where the processor takes slightly longer based on the fact that you've done some rework. So this is where we do, we go through and get the value of the rework and change it based on item rework, 2 different, it's standard amount of time and if it was a rework. Okay, there's not much else there that we need to look at straight away. So let's go to the FlexSim model. I've drawn it in advance. I'm just going to join everything up. An A there. If you want, you can hold down the Shift key, drag a box around those processors, and do an A to processor 1, and it should highlight them all. And then do an A from processor 1 to that. So it's a quick way of doing the connections. You have to go somewhere to the side and do Shift again, move just to let go of them. Then we're going to do to there, to the processor, then the processor to the sink, and the processor to the conveyor. So what we know is output port 1 from the processor is sink, output port 2 is the conveyor, so that's worth remembering. And then finally we have to join the last conveyor up to the queue. Okay, so we've done our modeling. Let's start putting in the information. So we'll open the source up, and we're going to give this inter arrival time of exponential 30. We can go through here and change that to 30, but also we can just quickly just change that to 30, and that's exactly the same. So let's apply that and say OK, and let's go to the toolbox, click on the green button, and go and get a global table. Name of the table is in the far right, so let's give that a new name and call it types. we want 4 rows. Got 4 different boxes, and it's going to be item type 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to get the percentage of how many we want. So 20% of them as they arrive are going to be item type 1, 30 of 2, 40 of item type 3, and 10% of item type 4. Let's go back to our model, open up the source property again, and go to triggers. And what we want to do is on creation, so as an item type is created, we want it to go and get the lookup table called types. So data, and we're going to use set label and color. Depending on what version of FlexSim you're using, we're using 2020. If you're using 2018 or less, this might say set item type. So we're going to set label, and we're going to change that to empirical brackets, and it's offering types. So it's a empirical expression, and it's going to call up the table type. So it'll give us some randomness in how it selects them, but the percentages will all be set by the type, the global lookup table. So if we click on apply and OK, always reset your model before you run it, so you know that you definitely, when you're pressing run, you're taking in all the changes you've done to the model. So let's just run the model. Let's get something happening. It'll almost always go to processor 1 because it'll probably be set to first available. There we go. So we've got a blue box, green box. Let's see if I can stop it. So okay, so we've got a green box there, and it's got an item type 2. We've got a yellow box, an item type 4. Actually, we can just step things through. So we've got another green box, item type 2, step, a yellow box. See if we can get a different color. Green box. This is item type 2, so let's look at item type 2. So it's 30%, so you're going to get item types 2 and 3 quite a lot. Would like to see another color just for my own sanity, I think. So look, come on. There's a blue. Item type 3. I imagine we're going to eventually get a red one if I can be bothered to keep clicking. So there we go. There it is. And that's item type 1. So we've got all the colors. Let's stop and reset. Right. So we want this queue to send item type 1 to processor 1, etc. So we could do this by expression, but we could first available means it's going to the first port, so it's always trying to go to port 1. If that processor 1 is busy, to go to 2. We could do this by expression, but let's have a look at another way of doing things. Port by case. There we go. And we want 3 cases. So if it's case 1, go to port 1. If it's case 2, go to port 2. If it's case 3, go to port 3. And if it's anything else, go to port 4. Anything else, we're only creating 4 cases, 1, 2, 3, or 4. some students don't like using the default. It's really up to you. You could put another case in on case 4 and then just ignore that top line. So let's apply that and say OK. And so if we reset run, we should see blues are always going to processor 3, greens, and so forth. So they're all going to the right ports now. Right. So now what we need to do is we're in the tools and we've got floor bin. If we expand that and just double click on any of these, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to double click on box. And we've got its properties and everything there. At the moment, it has no labels. It gets a label when the triggers, when the model triggers kicks in. Back here, if you remember, we created triggers and set the label. So on creation, but right at the beginning, it's just a box with no labels at all. Okay. Let's click on that and numerical label. Let's call that rework, and we'll default it to 0. Click apply and OK. It's still going to call the box up. We could have copied that and give it a new name. We would have then had to go to source, because if you remember in source, our flow item is box. If we'd have given it a new name, it would have appeared in the list. We're still sticking with the box. Let's reset run. See if we get any boxes on there that I can stop. My gaming is not good enough to do this. Let's slow it down a bit. Run. There we go. So we click on a box, and now you can see that we've got the item type, number, and its rework is 0. We've not checked. It will always be 0 until we get this processor to change it. The 20% that comes off here that value needs to be a 1, and when it goes all the way around and hits the queue, the queue will read it, and it will say if you're a 1, jump to the front of the queue. So let's stop and reset. So let's click on the processor. Okay, so we clicked on processor 1, and currently the processor time is set at 10. Let's do it. Change it to value by case. We know that if case 1 is uniform, brackets 120, 130. So if that, so we should have changed this. Remember that what we're trying to do on the object is find out what the rework value is. So if the box is rework and it's a value 1, it's going to take that amount of time. If its value of 0, it's going to be slightly less. So it's going to be 100, 120. Okay, so let's relook at that. We've created boxes, and they have a label called rework. They default to value 0, so 0. So if a box that's 0 comes along to this processor, it will take its processor time will be based on this formula. If, however, that rework has a value of 1, it will be slightly longer, and it will be based on this expression here. So apply and OK. And what we need to do is repeat that for the other 3 processors. So let's find a quick way of doing that. I don't want to have to do all that again. So hold down the Shift key, draw a box around those three. Go to View drop down and select Edit Selected Objects. Oh, there we go. Edit Selected Objects. Let's select Processor 1. So we've got Copy From highlighted in yellow. And we want to copy all the variables that are in Processor 1 to 2, 3, and 4. So let's click on that. And go back to the screen and shift click somewhere, and we'll just check processor 3 that's worked. So click on there, and you can see it's all gone across there, which is saved us a bit of time. Let's go to the last processor. And the floor, rather than first available, we want to be by percentage. We want 90% to go to port 1. Remember, port 1 was to the sink. Yeah. And we want 10% to go to port 2, which is the conveyor. Apply and OK. Let's click on the conveyor. We've got triggers on the conveyor, and what we want to do is on entry. So the only reason a box has come on here is because it is rework. So we want to set the label. We want it to be the rework label, and we want it to equal 1. And let's click apply and OK. So 90% will go to the sink, because that's port 1. 10% will come here. When it lands on here, it will its label will be renamed. Okay, another option we might want to do is let's go here. Now let's add, and let's change the color of these boxes. And let's change it to what let's change it into white. Why not? It's just a visual thing. So when boxes come around here and they're coming through, when they come back to the queue, we should be able to see that the white box will jump to the front. But currently what it'll do is it'll come off the conveyor and jump to the back, which is not what we want. So let's go to the queue, double click on that, go to triggers. Now you want on entry, and let's sort by expression. And we want to get the label rework, and we want it to be in descending order, because rework, when it comes in from the source, and it would normally be 0, but if it's 1, it's obviously come from the conveyor, so we want it descending order. Click apply and OK. Reset, always reset, run your model. Let's see, things start appearing. Want to take a little bit of time before we get anything going down the conveyor. As you see, we've already got one jump down. I think maybe it went down the conveyor and it was so fast we didn't see it. So it'd be kind of nice if we just to see it for this. So it's to get to the speed, you just double click on a conveyor and click on these 3 buttons, dots here, and it's 60 meters per second. I'm going to really slow that down, 0.5, and say OK. What should have happened with that is all the other conveyors, because they're connected, should be should take that 0.5, and it has. There we go. So let's see if we reset and run the model again. Hopefully, if we do get any parts going down the conveyor, there we go. So you can see that that part now has gone white. Its rework value is 1. If we compare that to a normal box, whose rework value is 0. If we see, I can watch this go, it should slow it down a little bit, get a nice run, and there it comes. So what it should do is jump to the front and go, what number is it? It's rework is number 4, so it should go here and jump to this processor. So it'd be next up after this yellow one goes. And it's waiting. So the yellow one, there you go. And don't forget, this is now taking into account that it is rework. So it's got a case. So its value is 1, so it's going to be run. It's going to run slightly slower. So that's a scenario of that machine has got to disassemble the part to fix it. Okay, right. That is a nice example on using labels, really powerful. It also shows you how to allow objects to sort of jump to the front of the queue, which again you could see happening in industry. So I hope that was helpful for you. Thanks a lot.